This week in the conversation, I'll be speaking with prolific writer Loni Hoots. She is the author of many great literary works. She's written several collections of poetry. She's a novelist. She's written lots of novellas. So tonight we're going to be speaking about all of her literary works. But before we get into this interesting interview with author Loni Hoots, I just want to remind you also of my own literary journey. I want you to, I'm encouraging you to get a copy of my latest novel titled Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring. I keep saying that every time because I know the best way to support a writer is to encourage that writer to get a copy of, at least is to read his or her works. In this case, it's me. I'm asking you to get a copy of Bittersweet Memories of Last Spring. It can be found anywhere, everywhere they sell books, including Walmart. So last but not least is to continue to encourage friends and fans to support the conversation. This is one of the best literary shows out there on YouTube. And after watching this video, if you think it's been of interest to you, just let us know in the comment box. And also, if you like it, just like it too, okay? So let's get started. Again, my name is Ardain Isma, and I'm here this evening with a prolific writer. I'm here with author Loni Hoots. She's talking prolific. It's just another statement. But it's an honor for me to have this opportunity to talk to you, Loni, end the conversation, because I've been watching you for the longest now. I have to say, Loni, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. It's nice talking to you, and thank you for having me.
There's one thing I always do when I have a writer for the first time in the conversation. I ask the writer to introduce himself or herself.
Okay.
So it's no different for you. So could you please tell the viewers of CSMS Magazine, who is Loni Hoots?
Hi. Well, like you said, my name is Loni Hoots. I've been a writer most of my life, and I've been a published writer for about a decade or so. And I have about 15 books now, which is amazing. 6 of them are poetry books, 2 novellas. I even have a children's book series, and I work at a school right now. And we're actually incorporating the children's book series into the curriculum. So that's actually really cool.
Really? Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of authors before by the way, there's an author I'll be speaking with. The video will be published tomorrow. Her name is Anne Delgado, and she's published a very interesting children's book too. And she's an educator, just like you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that comes my question to you, Loni. How it's possible you be so prolific? You are so prolific, but yet you are also an educator, and you writing and across genres and literature. How do you make this? And how do you discipline yourself doing so?
It definitely takes a lot of discipline for sure. Actually, I made the big, huge jump recently within the past month or so to fully commit to the education field because I was in the medical field for a little bit over a decade, ever since I was a teenager. And so I worked odd hours. Sometimes I would work graveyard shifts, and those were just chaotic. But I would always come home, take a nap, and then I would find at least 30 minutes to an hour to write something. It could be a chapter or something, or even just a couple of poems, just to get everything out that was in my head. So you definitely have to have discipline.
A discipline to do so.
Yeah, it definitely does take some time because right now I'm working on a novel that has taken me some time, but because it's a bit intense on this one, but it definitely takes a lot of discipline, and it's okay to have lazy days, but you also have to set reminders for yourself to like get to it if you want to see it done.
Okay, I understand your very interesting novel, The Secret of Eden Field, will be re-released in the second edition. Am I
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, and there's going to be an audio version of it too now.
Yes, it will be coming out, I believe, in May. The audio version will, and I'm working with a wonderful actor. It's Small World. She and I both grew up in Colorado, but she's now in the Catskills up in New York, and she's got a slew of like roles from theater and voice acting. So she's actually going to be the one that's narrating the book. So it's really cool.
Okay. And then you know what? The title itself is very intriguing. And also, there is a very punchy opening in the description of the novel. It says that for decades, the secret of what happened beyond Eden Field's wall has been hidden from the public until now.
Yes.
So, what happened until now?
Well, a lot of it is kind of like a mystery.
Okay.
If you know anything about mental asylums, like historical wise, you like there's so much that they just left like thrown into piles. No one knows names or anything like that. And so it's kind of like, what happened there? Like, who were these people? What were they put through? And it's kind of like giving those lost voices a chance to like talk to the reader and give them like a platform, basically, even if it is fictional.
Exactly. But we're not going to tell the plot now. We just
We can talk about the plot. Um, but for sure, the first part of the book, because it's sectioned into three parts. So the first part is you're introduced to a couple of different characters. Um, like for one of them in chapter two, it's titled Fairy, and you're basically getting to know this elderly woman and her backstory and
Mhm,
like how she came to Enfield. And it's really interesting because there were some people that I read about, like
mhm.
how they were put into unfortunate circumstances and they had to take matters into their own hands because women weren't allowed to really get a divorce and they were abused by husbands, so they had to, do things that weren't pleasant, I guess you could say. And so it just kind of shows like where she came from and how she kind of flipped a switch
Mhm.
and it landed her in Enfield.
Okay. So I would say there's more than one protagonist in the story.
Yes. So there is Charlie in chapter one, Fairy in chapter two, and then there are the Tupper twins in three. In four, it's Rex, and in chapter five, it's Maureen. So you're getting to know a couple different characters and their backstories.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's just like when you have a very interesting stew uh, of literary prose, you know, and when novelistic prose when in this way, this could be pretty intriguing, compelling, and also, you know, it can get you hooked into these multifaceted stories, and you just don't want to let go until the very end of the story. And not every writer has the skill to do so. Uh, I have to say, I don't have the skill to do multi, you know, and I really appreciate that writers like you, writers like uh, Anne Marino, or other writers, they do this so beautifully, and everything has been infused, just like channel into just one theme, and that's very interesting when authors really do that. My other question, because I know The Secret of Eden Field is your first major novel to be published now.
Yeah, it's actually my debut novel, and I had two novellas before, but those are less than 40,000 words, so they're not considered novels. Interesting, but yeah, Secrets of Enfield. It's my first debut novel, and it's an interesting concept to people because they're like, "Oh, this is a interesting book." And I'm like, "Yeah, give it a shot. You never know."
You said that in one of the interviews that you give to a magazine, I think it's Poetica Place,
Yeah,
and you refer to your early experiences writing poetry. You said that let me just get it right.
yeah,
One
that's
of your
okay.
favorite poems is the one titled "Take It In."
Yeah, I remember that one.
And then let me just read a couple of verses of that. It's so beautiful. I said, "Take it in, every inch of it, and you'll see what awaits you when you open the door. You've got to make a change. The universe can only do so much. Try not to worry. That'll change your perspective if you do, and you'll be greeted by a new life. This I know." Do you really know? Can you please share
Yeah,
with the audience what you know?
yeah, I remember that poem. I was going through a lot, and I was like, oh, I need to really just like take everything in right now because right like at that moment when I wrote that, I was really not close-minded per se, but I was really just kind of nervous. I was like, what is going to happen? I'm scared, confused, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let everything happen, come to me, and I'm just going to enjoy it and just enjoy the ride. And I've been enjoying it for a while, and here I am. So,
It always say a poet always writes from the soul. Do you agree?
yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. If you think about it, every moment, every event you've ever gone through in life, you experience certain emotions that are attached to those. Like, say you fall in love with someone and you have all these beautiful memories, but you also have sad memories and you also have some unpleasant memories. But every memory of that is going to inf- like, inspire you and your heart in so many different ways that you can write anything. It doesn't have to be a poem, it could be like a short little story or a little essay. And you can just see like how your soul has become intertwined with like memories and events and just like
Okay.
people that come into your life. So I think it's really interesting,
I
and
have a
I
question.
truly believe that. So
Okay. I have a question for you. So, when does a poet feel more comfortable? Is it in her moment of sadness when she feels down in darkness, or during the happy moments?
I would say it's probably different for everyone, but for me, I think it's more when I'm feeling sad because I'm able to figure out what's going on in my heart, my soul, and in my head because I'm going through all these different emotions and everything's trying to connect together. And so I'm like, where does it connect? And so I think that's for me at least, but every poet's different for sure.
There's something I remember you saying, and I wrote it down here. Uh, you say, "I'm a hopeless romantic. I love love, never understood why. But it has always a part of me since I was 10 and was reading Anne of Green Gables series." I remember the
Yeah.
series. Yeah. Please look at that.
Yeah, I actually want to go back to Canada and go to PEI because they have this Anne of Green Gables museum and attraction, and I want to go and experience all that. But I don't know if you've ever read a Anne of Green Gables series, but the protagonist Anne Shirley, she meets all these people because of just one event. And she meets Gilbert Blythe. And the funniest thing from that book series is that the way he falls in love with her is funny because he's like, I want you, I want you. And she's like, no, get out of my head. He she takes her chalkboard and just breaks it over his head.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then, but she doesn't realize she is slowly developing that relationship, that bond with him until like book three, I think, if I remember correctly. Like it's not until much later because she built this friendship with him. And there's that type of love there. And I love that type of love. Like the best friend, your companion, your confidant, and it grows from that.
But in a way, and the sense that you say, you're going to say that in a way, romance propels me through life, not only personally, but also as a writer, as a
Yes. Love is complicated, it's messy, it's beautiful, but it can definitely make me think and make me reflect on all the relationships I personally had with, you know, romantic partners. But it can also make me reflect on the relationships I've had with like my parents, because that type of love is completely different.
correct,
And it can still be messy, but it can still be beautiful at the same
correct,
time.
correct. To that end, I just want to ask you this question here now. Do you anticipate of writing some romance stories as you go on?
I actually am working on a romance
You
story right
are.
now. So that's kind of funny.
Okay, I want to ask a question here
Yeah.
now. What was the feeling when you truly realize that you're going to be a published author?
Oh, um, hmm. I think it was when I was in my lowest moment, when I was like
Really?
22.
Okay.
I was like, I need to do this. Otherwise, I'm never going to be happy. And so
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to do it now. Why not? And so I started like pushing myself out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I poked myself in the eye.
That's okay. That's okay. You're fine. You're fine. And you know what? Your collection of poetry is well received. Uh, because of the simple fact that the way you write, because your lines, every word is well crafted into something. For example, the passage that I just read, I felt like basically you were speaking to me, because
Yeah.
every one of us in life, we face some moment of darkness,
Right.
when you're down, you need that strength to navigate your way out of it, and when you conquer that fear, that when you finally can stand and look behind you, it's truly behind you.
Yeah.
There's a sentiment, there's a feeling of triumphant, moment, and you want that to last, but it's not going to last, because this is life. One roadblock, probably one obstacle, one headway, one success. That's life itself. So
Yes.
as a poet, I'm asking you this specific question, Loni. When do you really find the moment? Is it at night you write poetry, or early in the morning? You're not the first poet I asked this question.
Right. For me, I found myself writing more poems late at night, like closer
Mhm.
to midnight.
Listen.
And I don't know what it is. It could be the witching hour for all I know for poets. But um, I've I found myself listening to my favorite uh, slower music,
Right.
even if it doesn't have lyrics, just ambient music. And I just listen to it and I just kind of like dive head deep into my journals and write as many poems as I possibly can. I did that
Okay.
just the other night, actually, and I was like, I need to go to bed. I have work in the morning.
So how many poems can you write a day, or maybe you
It
can?
really just depends. But the other night when this happened, I wrote 3 or 4 poems, I think, and I keep a journal in my bedroom, like in the
Wow.
other room,
Wow.
on my dresser. I actually have two journals. That
Wow.
way, I could write if I run
Wow.
out of room.
Wow.
And if you can't see it, and I just moved here, but I have like boxes all over my floor.
Okay.
I just moved a couple weeks ago here.
Okay.
I just moved here.
Mm,
But I have journals like all over the place.
that's okay.
5 of them on my desk.
That's okay. Is there any way that you can show to the audience like the cover of The Secret of Eden Field? If you do have it now,
I
if
do
that's
not
okay. If you
have it
don't
with
have it,
me right here, but you
okay.
can they can definitely go to my website
I,
and
I
it's gonna
I'll
be
put that
right
on the
there.
link of the video at the bottom of the video. All your contact where they can find you. I will have that at the bottom of the video. Now we've been talking for over 20 minutes about literature, but it's always we're human too, and there's different aspects, you know, of human life. Literature is one of it, but also we have music, we have food. As an individual, do you like to cook a lot?
I love cooking. I grew up cooking and baking. Randomly I will bake cookies or something in the middle of the night when I should be sleeping, but I'm like, I'm hungry for cookies. And I'll just do that for some weird reason. I don't know why.
Do you perhaps maybe someday you might come up with you might share with us a cooking book, right?
I actually have so many recipes that I created in like this little box, and it's on
Really?
my kitchen counter.
Right.
And it's also filled with some family recipes too. So I
Okay.
think it actually might be a good idea because I'm also creating new recipes all the time, and
Okay.
I have celiac, so I have to be gluten free. So it'd be a good idea to have more recipes for others who do have the same
Okay.
stomach issues I do. So
Okay.
good idea.
How about music? What is your favorite music?
I listen to a lot of indie folk.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the Paper Kites is actually one of my favorite bands. Big fan of the Clientele. I do listen to more modern music. I'm not gonna deny myself some Lizzo, but I listen to a wide range. My parents were teenagers when they had me, and so I also grew up on like Air Supply and uh, Bon Jovi and
You
Dean
like that?
Martin, Sammy Davis
Okay.
Jr. Like I grew up on all of that.
Okay. So my next question, Lani, I know every writer at some point, or maybe at the beginning of the writing career, a writer or multiple writers have inspired. Who has inspired you to become a published writer?
A lot, actually. If we're talking more modern writers,
Contemporary
uh,
writers.
I would think Elif Shafak is one of my major ones. She's a phenomenal Turkish writer. She's based out of France.
What's her name
Uh,
again?
Elif Shafak.
Alicia.
Uh, if I recommend The Flea Palace, phenomenal book. I always recommend it to people. I'm like, need to read this. I want to meet her and just be like, dig into her brain. She's so good. And I'm like, what is going on in that woman's brain? How does she create this?
Okay.
But I also love a good Stephen King novel. I like thriller, but not like blood and gore kind of stuff. So
Okay.
Stephen King's more my alley.
Okay.
I'm just
But to that end, who is your favorite author of all time?
oh, I hate that question because it's like asking a parent to choose their favorite child.
I
It's
know.
like
I know.
I
It's
can't.
one of the hardest questions. Everyone says the same thing, you know.
It's
But
hard.
we can say this one is really truly.
Yeah. I okay. If we go with romance, which is
Okay.
what I read a lot, I would say either E.M. Forster or uh, Jane Austen. Two great writers. They are classic. You cannot go wrong with them. Uh, Definitely, like it's a tie between those two for romance for sure. A Room with a View is definitely one of my favorite romance novels because it's like a coming of age, and I felt
Okay. Story.
a lot like Lucy in the book. I was like,
Okay.
oh.
Okay. So, as we're getting to the end of the conversation, I have this last question for you, Lonnie. If there is a lesson you really would like to uh, give to any writer out there who would love to follow your path at becoming such an impeccable multitask, cross genre, prolific writer as you are, how do you advise that person how to discipline himself or herself to become so successful at doing it just like you?
I would say don't give up on yourself. And even though there's going to be hard times in the morning or even at night when you're like, I don't want to write, I'm not feeling confident in myself, do it anyway. You never know what might come out of it. Because I've felt insecure in some of my writing. And, sometimes whatever you write may not be ready for right now, but it might be ready for the future. And it's something to keep even in your archives on your computer, because like honestly it can help. And don't give up on that story just quite yet, because it could be something completely different. You can
Mhm.
merge it into another.
Okay.
I've learned that a lot about some of
A
my
lot of
stuff.
it. To that end, I'm just going to say it's been more than a pleasure to have had the opportunity to receive in the conversation prolific writer Loni Hoots.
Thank you, Arden.
Okay, fantastic.